going to talk to you about this series of donkey videos. I want to share some background with you so that you better understand what I think I'm doing here, which may not be at all what you think I'm doing here. I don't know how to do this. I'm not an expert. I've never trained a donkey to work before. I've never successfully trained any animal except dogs. I have successfully trained dogs. But dogs are predators. Donkeys are prey animals. And it makes a big difference in their temperament, in their personality, and the ways by which you train them. Donkeys are easily frightened, and a lot of the bad reputation they get is because they won't work when they're afraid. Not unless you can persuade them to trust you enough to work through that fear, which may or may not be possible at any given moment. It depends on the depth and intensity of their fear. The reason I'm doing this is because I firmly believe that the technological structures on which modern society is built, and that's using the term technological as other people would use it, the cars, the airplanes, the electricity, the fuel, I believe that all that is going to collapse. And I believe, the reason that I believe that is much more than I can get into today's video. But I can tell you that there are respectable scientists, climate scientists, ecologists, multidisciplinary scientists who agree entirely with me that this whole thing is going to collapse, and not way far in the distant future. You know, they quibble about whether it'll be in, 10 years or 20 years. Well, I'm 70, 72 actually, and I can tell you for sure that 20 years ago wasn't long. If you're 40 now, and in the midst of your life, building your resource base, acquiring your permanent home, and acquiring your assets that will carry you through, you're not going to believe how quick 20 years is. You're just not going to believe it. You're at 40 and you're looking back at 20 and you're thinking, well, that was a while. Well, I'll tell you something, 60 is tomorrow. So, maybe I'm wrong, okay? The people who just reject what I say out of hand, they're betting I'm wrong. I can't prove that I'm not. It is not humanly possible to prove anything about the future. Yeah, I mean, I could hold something here and let go of it, and I could pretty much prove that it was going to fall to the ground. But future shapes of society cannot be predicted. Future evolutions of technology cannot be predicted. We don't know. So everybody's betting. Everybody's working on, here's how I bet it'll come out. And the way I bet it comes out is this whole thing falls on its face. Now, in my opinion, there are things which people could do now to improve their odds of getting through when everything falls on its face. One of the continually predicted, and I mean by lots and lots and lots of respectable scientists, this is not just about some strange old guy in the middle of nowhere in a beat-to-death farm. Lots of scientists are talking about what they call multi-grain basket failures, which means that our annual crops will fail globally, or at least continent-wide, as a direct result of climate events. And that's probably true. I don't see how it could not be. We have put our entire survival, which our food is our survival. If we can't eat, we can't survive. Okay? The fastest we die is if we run out of air. The second fastest we die is if we run out of water. And the third fastest we die is if we run out of food. And if we run out of any of those things, each individual who runs out of any of those things past a certain not very long time frame dies. Okay, so we have essentially based our whole global food system on about 5 grass seeds. So it wouldn't take a real big alteration of the systems for those 5 grass seeds to fail. I mean, you know, we're talking corn and rice and wheat and a couple of lesser ones, milo and millet, and a couple of annual beans, you know, soybeans and black-eyed peas and, you know, a few of those things. It wouldn't take a big change for all those things to fail at once because they're too closely related. Their requirements are too similar. So, you know, I mean, we're just the simple fact that a whole global society would base its survival on such a narrow. I mean, we know for sure that there are hundreds and hundreds of plants that grow on the earth that can sustain human life indefinitely. We know for sure that we could live just as long on chestnuts as we can live on corn. I mean, we just know that. It's not complex. And so what we could do, you know, if we were concerned about running out of food all at once, a multi-breadbasket failure, is we could start planting things which operate on different portions of the ecosystem. You know, trees can get their water from deeper in the ground, and we could change our management in many ways. But we're also the next thing we believe in is energy and speed and the power to do things. And I have concluded that after this collapse, which I say is coming, that the collapse is going to stay collapsed. You know, there are a lot of people who call themselves survivalists, and they've got, you know, 1,000 gallons of gasoline stashed away, and they've got all these cans of water stashed away, and when the collapse comes, they're going to get through it, and when the culture recovers, they're going to be on top because they never ran out of gas. I think when the collapse comes, it's over. Okay? I think if the United States, the whole nation, was without electricity for 2 weeks, that it would be impossible to ever recover what we have today. Because if you look at what happens, okay, look at like Houston after Harvey. What happens is that Houston is just wiped out completely. But the whole rest of the country is still running. So from this whole continent, people go to Houston, and they take with them resources that are available where they were, and they take with them skills that they have, and they take with them tools that they have, and they take with them energy that they had available, fuels that they had available, and they take all that to Houston and they rebuild it. That only works if the outage is localized and the continuing operational system, broad scale, still functions. If you shut down all the electricity in the United States nationwide, okay, in the first place, all gasoline is pumped by electricity, period. So if you shut down the electricity, you shut down the fuel, even if it's in the ground. You know, even if it's in tanks. You can't get it out. You can get a little out. You can't get it out enough to maintain what we have here. You know, virtually all the water is pumped by electricity. You know, they take electricity and they pump it up into towers, which provides a head so gravity will push it back into your pipes. But if you can't get it up in a tower, it won't come back out your pipes. That's how this all works. And so if the day the collapse came, you had a garage full of stored acorns, which are human food, chestnuts, which are human food, hazelnuts, which are human food, and you also had stored dry grass, hay, which is animal food, and you had an animal who would carry your stuff for you, then you could actually continue to function, whereas the rest of the society would be unable to. Now, there's no guarantee you'd live because of that, because the rest of society, when it comes time to almost starve, they're going to go out and they're just going to find somebody they can take from if they can, or they're going to find somebody they can, we don't know what will happen. During the Depression, people helped each other. Would they again? I don't know. I just don't know. I can't see that part of the future. So I got this guy. He's been with me all his life. He was born on my farm 18, almost 19 years ago now. And a year ago this week, I decided to teach him to do work for me. He was tame. I could put a halter on him. I could lead him around. That's all we had. We couldn't do anything else. I couldn't even pick up his feet. And his feet were in terrible shape. So what I'm showing you with these videos is me learning to do this. I'm making this up as I go along. I don't have any background information. That's not true. I used to work with a team of horses. I've read a lot of books by a guy named Lynn Miller, who is extremely knowledgeable about working horses. And I read from Lynn how harness works, and I read from Lynn other things. And I've read a magazine called the Small Farmer's Journal for decades, and it teaches many of these skills. So I have learned them secondhand. I've learned them in an abstract form. Once I even got and worked some draft horses. I didn't train them. They had already been trained. And I discovered that the longer I had them, the less well they worked, because I didn't even know how to maintain their skill level, let alone create one for them. So I've decided that donkeys are more practical than horses. They are known to be more energy efficient. That is to say, a donkey can do 1 foot-pound of work on less calories of food than a horse can. That's energy efficiency in its real measurement. They are also smaller, so that if you were going to work a horse to half his strength, but you had to feed all his strength, you could instead take a donkey and work him to 3/4 of his strength and feed all his strength, and you would gain 2 ways. One, all his strength level isn't as high, and 2, the food per foot-pound of work of all the strength isn't as high. So you can gain 2 ways. So donkeys are really, they're our best hope of salvation. Although horses would be good. Cattle aren't that energy efficient. But on the other hand, they can just eat grass wherever they go. So we'd have other ways to do this. So what we're doing here, what I'm doing here, is I'm making all this up as I go along. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have this donkey. I'm very fond of him. I found the longer I've worked him and the more I've worked him, how incredibly pleasant they are to be around. I mean, they're gentle. They get excited and they run away and they break stuff and it's not perfect. I'm not going to lie to you. Nothing's perfect. But when they're calm, when they're at their best, they're so calm and they're so gentle and they're so placid and easy to get along with. And they're affectionate. They like to be touched. You touch them and they come to you to get touched again. That's all free. Okay? That's all free. That has nothing to do with the importance of maintaining our lives. If we're going to try to maintain our lives and we need more strength to do it than the sole strength of our bodies unaided, and we can no longer get fuel for our cars, then we're going to have to use animals. There is no... That's it. That's all there is. So I'm going to make my next video here is going to be how to do something I've never done before. I'm going to close this one and make a separate one for that. I just want to let you know that you're not looking at an expert showing you how to do expert stuff. You're looking at a guy who thinks that he sees an existential threat facing humankind. You're looking at a guy who thinks that everything we have based our survival on is all balanced on the head of a pin and spinning slower and slower, and when the spin gets to a certain slow pace, it falls off. And so I'm offering you something to think about. And nobody has to believe me, nobody has to agree with me. And I absolutely know for sure that I can't prove any of these theories. But Abraham and I, we're just trying to figure out how to survive. And I made a decision to share that with you all on YouTube. While this technology lasts, to use it to spread perhaps a map to get into the next technology that we'll have to adapt to. That's all.